Well, the first thing is terms.
Mm-hmm.
People will often interchange the word management and leadership.
Okay, yeah.
They couldn't be further apart. Things get managed like inventory. You manage inventory.
Yep. You might manage
And-
schedules, like so-and-so
right?
comes in at 8 and the other person comes in at noon. Yeah.
But people get led.
Yeah.
You don't manage people, you lead people. Think about it in the military. Have you ever heard somebody talk about managing people into battle? I haven't.
You're right. No.
You lead people. And so demonstrating those leadership skills is really key. Now, is leadership some mumbo jumbo? No. The one of the most important traits of a great leader is authenticity. Be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be predictable.
Yeah.
Be clear.
Clear. Yep.
Be clear.
Mhm.
Right.
Hello, and welcome to the Business Aviation Collective podcast, sponsored by LD Aviation. I'm your host, Lindsay, and today we have a special guest. It's Jim Lara. He is the founder of Greystone Advisors. Greystone Advisors has been in existence for over 27 years, which is a feat in itself. Additional background on Jim is that he has a BS degree in business management from San Francisco. He also has a bunch of postgraduate studies, including some from Stanford and Darden. He's an ATP-rated pilot with over 11,000 flight hours. And over the course of his career, he not only has held several senior leadership positions in countless domestic and international flight departments, he's worked in other industries as well, as we're going to hear later on. He's going to tell us about that. But he's worked in specialty retail, including mall real estate and pleasure boats as well, I believe, as well as logistics and distribution, which includes the design of a fully automated warehousing system. So welcome, Jim, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Lindsay. It's really great to be here.
I really appreciate you coming to speak with us today because I think you have a really unique view of the aviation industry because you get a chance to see all sorts of different flight departments, and every flight department is different. Some have schedulers, some don't have schedulers, and we're going to talk about some of those percentages a little bit further down. But let me start off with, how did you even get into aviation?
Well, like most of us in aviation, I wanted to fly since I was about 5, but I didn't make that a reality until I was in my 20s, really. And so my undergraduate degree is in business management with a minor in, or emphasis in computer science and a minor in math.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I graduated and had to go make a real living, I managed to get on with Levi Strauss. They recruited me, and you probably remember them, Lindsay. Those are the folks
yeah.
with the pants.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those were the best. My kids still, we buy them. Yeah, we still get them.
Good. Well, back in the day, they actually made them and sewed them in the United States, but unfortunately no longer. So I started off in IT, and I'm a guy like many. I've had many careers. So the first one was in IT, it was in system software, then application software. And then I was fortunate enough at Levi's to have a mentor. And my mentor saw that IT was not where I should be. He said I was too entrepreneurial. So they pulled me out of IT and they sent me back to grad school. And when I came back out of grad school, and that was in industrial engineering, they sent me down to a plant to learn how to run a plant. And so I didn't do very well there. I was only there. My first week, I set a company record of getting a union grievance in only 3 days. I got a union grievance. So eventually I learned that was because I wasn't taking care of my people on the floor. Mm-hmm. And so a real leader has to be with his folks on the floor. Sure. So after I survived that, then they sent me down to New Mexico. And I had 4 sewing facilities and a state press curing facility to look after. And they gave me a key to this antique thing that almost nobody knows what it is today. It's called a station wagon. And they asked me to be in every plant once a month. So five plants once a month.
Okay.
So I did that for about a month, and I called my mentor and I said, Ed, this is not going to work. I'm going to get killed on these roads down here. And he said, well, what's your idea? What's the alternative? And I said, I need to fly to these plants.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, how are you going to do that? I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll provide the aircraft, company provides the operating cost. And so we came to an agreement.
That's awesome.
And that first business airplane was really fancy. It was a Bonanza, a single engine Bonanza. But
it got the job done.
Yeah, but it had no stand-up lav and no galley and, and no reclining seats. So, but anyway, it was very valuable.
Business aviation can look different in whatever company you have. It can look different.
That's at the very basic level. So that was my first introduction to business aviation, but it really demonstrated to me that time is money. And if you can be with your people, you can help them achieve results that are greater than what they ever thought that they could achieve. And that was the power that I learned of business aviation. So I took that with me to my next career, was in the turnaround industry, which is identifying companies that were underperforming and turning them around, helping them get healthy. And so I joined a group. They recruited me, and the first one we did was in Detroit. And there again, we used business aviation to keep our team our leadership team very, very tight. This was a wholesale distribution company with distribution centers all over the United States and in Canada. So eventually I was the GM of Canada. That's what I ran and helped them in the United States. But we used business aviation all the time. And about half the time I got on and turned left. And half the time I got on and turned right. So business aviation was key. And we used business aviation in all of the subsequent turnarounds. So the next one was in Minneapolis. And that was, as you and I discussed previously, I think
Yeah, I'm from Minneapolis. Yep.
Okay. All right. So this was the Music Lane Group, which is a series of retail stores. And in New York City, for our friends in New York City, it was Sam Goody. So those brands would probably be familiar.
Yes.
So each one of these took between 3 and 5 years. So it was Detroit, Minneapolis. The next one was in Columbia, Maryland, which is just outside of Baltimore. And that was the beginning of home video. And then the next one was in LA. And that was the Warehouse. That's WHEREHOUSE. And we had stores in the 6 Western states. We had over 250 stores in the 6 Western states. And again, business aviation was key there. But it was there that I really came to grips with the fact that business aviation is really kind of polaric. It's either great or it's terribly expensive.
Okay.
It all depends on how that resource is used. But the other thing that dawned on me is business aviation's critical product. What is its critical product? And it's very, very simple. It is the creation of more usable time. Since time is our only non-renewable resource, we can make more of everything else, but we can't make more time.
Yeah.
And when we think about an executive today in today's corporations, most executives work about 3,000 hours a year. Now, a 40-hour week is 2,080 hours.
Yeah.
So those of us who are nuts enough to go into the C-suite, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
So if we can create 300 hours, 10% more usable time for an executive, it's a huge impact for the corporation.
Yeah.
So I really understood then how business and aviation can really be complementary and how valuable business aviation can be. But I saw that a lot of business principles weren't yet inculcated into aviation. And so after I did probably near my last turnaround in LA, and I'd moved my wife, my sweet wife.
I was just going to ask you if you've been moving all these places or if you were just kind of commuting.
No, we moved. And so this is our 49th year, Lindsay.
Wow,
49th year.
congratulations. That is so cool.
And so I moved her all over the country. And when we were in LA, she said, Jim, I can't do her Southern accent, so I'll just do mine. Jim, if you have any hope of staying married, particularly to me, then we need to settle down. And she said, and I know where we're going to settle down. We're going to settle down in my hometown, her hometown, which is Knoxville, Tennessee. So
not a bad place.
So we moved to Knoxville and we bought her family's historic homestead from the mid 1800s. And we built a little farmhouse there. And then she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, business aviation has always been great to me. And I've used it a lot. I want to see if I can get involved full-time in business aviation here in Tennessee. And she said, great. So I met a fellow who had a boat manufacturing company.
Okay.
And so he wanted me to come aboard and do some business stuff. And I said, Mr. Ray, thank you so much, but I've already gotten those T-shirts and wore them out about 7 times. So, and he said, well, you're a pilot, aren't you? And I said, yes, I am. He said, well, I have this flight department and Jim, I don't know what it costs. The airplanes are always broken and the pilots are always whining. Could you take a look at it? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll take a look at it and see what I can do. So I came back to him and I said, I'll sign up for a year.
Okay.
So we worked together as a team. And the company, some of your listeners may know the brand, it's Sea Ray Boats. So we had some great times and had a great aviation unit and great folks in the aviation unit. And we were also responsible for commercial travel as well. So all the airlines and rental cars and so forth. And the orchestration of the dealer events, which were a couple times a year, which were 600 people traveling to all over the world.
Okay.
But it was a great run. But during that time, I became friends with a lot of other flight department managers, and they were being taxed with some very serious business questions, and they hadn't been raised on the business track. They've been raised on the technical track.
Okay.
So I was able to help them with a number of their business questions. And it dawned on me, maybe like it dawned on you in your practice, that maybe there's a business here.
Right.
So in the late 90s, we formed Greystone Advisors, and we've been at it ever since. And our tagline is, we focus on the business side of business aviation. So trying to inculcate the principles of business into business aviation. And it's been a great association with the NBAA. We've done a lot of speaking for them and served on the safety committee for a number of years. But all the folks that I've met in business aviation on the provider side and on the senior executive side have all been terrific. And we just try and add value wherever we can.
That's awesome. I have kind of just a small, almost technical question. So how did you said you met all sorts of flight department leaders. How did you meet them? You're just
through NBAA. And when you're on a trip and you're in an FBO, you have the choice of sitting there like a bump on the log or going over and saying, my name is Jim Lara. I don't have the pleasure of knowing you. What's your name? And what do you do? And who are you with? And how's it going?
That's the exact response I was hoping for, because I just want to tell the audience and keep reminding everybody that this is networking industry. You have to reach out to people. Like you said, introduce yourself. Just because you don't know them doesn't mean you can't be friendly and go introduce yourself. And you just never know where that person might lead you or not, in the future. So thank you.
Absolutely. And everybody's got a different set of skills. Nobody has all the skills. And, you come across somebody who has a unique skill set, file it away, that one away, because you may come up against that problem someday. And, it's like the Ghostbusters story, right? Who are you going to call?
Okay. That's right. Keep that in your Rolodex. Somebody gave me a little tip one time is because I have a hard time remembering sometimes all of the different people and maybe their skill sets. And she was she suggested writing it down, literally writing everything down. You can't keep it all in your head, but it's like your Rolodex. Okay, people don't have Rolodex, I guess, anymore, but write that stuff down so you can go back and look into it. I don't
know if anybody will be able to see this, but this is a packet that I have of 3x5 cards. And this goes right in my shirt pocket. And this is from Levenger. I'll give them a little plug.
Okay.
The online, and you can have them. You can have your initials on here, and it's strong enough so you can write on it. Mm-hmm. Here's a supply of cards in here. These are my blanks that I'm going to use, and here are the ones that I need to follow up on that are back here. So it is called a pocket organizer, and I've used this for years.
That is so cool.
I write it all down.
Okay, I'm going to look that up. And then when I find it, I'll pop it in the details section of this podcast. So in case anybody else wants to look at them and perhaps get one, because I struggle with honestly remembering everybody and all the pieces. So I really try hard to stop what I'm doing after I've met somebody and write that stuff down.
Here's another one.
Mm-hmm.
For all the pilots that are out there, all the directors of aviation, directors of maintenance techs, line pilots, flight attendants, everybody, sure you take with you a business card. When you meet somebody, hand them your business card. And this is how you're going to help them remember you. And if they have one, grab one of theirs.
Yep. That's so true. I've kicked myself a few times when I leave the house without it. And they're not going to be able to remember you without it.
Yeah, exactly.
Great idea. So we talked a little bit about that networking, and I know this is a little bit maybe out of the organization that we talked about as far as what we're going to talk about along the way today, but you mentioned mentorship. I think suggestions like you just gave us, they're so helpful. You mentioned you had a mentor at Levi's. Maybe could you tell us a little bit more about your mentor / what it means to be a mentor?
Sure. Well, when I have to go back a little bit. So when I was 19, I was advised when I was in college to write my first life plan. And to write it so that it would be reviewed every 6 months. And one of the things that I discovered pretty early is that I wasn't learning enough stuff fast enough as to how the real world works. Mm-hmm. So a friend advised me to identify somebody in a business circle that I respected, who I thought really had a handle on how to run a business and how to lead people. And that person was Ed Combs of Levi's.
Okay.
And so I was in the IT department. Now, I mean, think about this. I am this lowly programmer in the IT department. Mm-hmm. And here's the guy that's executive VP of Levi Strauss & Company. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what I did was I said, well, what's the worst answer I could get? No.
Sure.
Right? No, it's the worst answer.
That's right.
And so I said, I'm gonna approach him. And so I called his secretary and I got an appointment, and I got a 30-minute appointment, which for a senior executive, that's a long time, 30 minutes. And somebody told me that I had 6 seconds to set the hook in the appointment. Okay. 6 seconds. So I talked to him and I said, Mr. Combs, thank you for seeing me today. I want you to be my professional mentor, and let me tell you how that's going to benefit this company.
Okay.
That was the opening line, right?
Short and sweet.
Because I've tried to answer the question that everybody should be trying to answer for when they are asking for somebody's help. And that is explaining to that person what's in it for them. Not what's in it for me, but what's in it for them.
Yep.
And it became a mentor of mine. Rough, but became a mentor. Then I had another mentor later in my career was Lou Quaker. And Lou was the president of the turnaround company that I worked for. And Lou was the one who taught me how to write.
Very important skill. Yep.
Yeah.
Very important skill.
So at that time, there were no laptops. There were no computers. There were only typewriters.
Yeah.
There was still carbon paper.
Sure. Yeah.
And if there was one typo on that document, you did it over.
Oh my gosh. Think about that I've used a typewriter, but really I came into doing papers and stuff when the computer was around. But can you imagine typing that all out and having to redo it again? That'd be pretty miserable.
It didn't happen very many times.
I bet not. Yeah. You look pretty quick.
Their mentors are not easy on you. They are tough on you.
Mm-hmm.
And they are insisting on excellence. And if you don't buy into excellence, don't sign up for mentorship. And it's a very fast track to help you learn and grow. Mm-hmm. And I'm forever grateful.
And you mentioned earlier, you talked about the fact that they're going to ask hard questions and they're going to point out difficult things. And important that you're ready for that and receiving of that, open to receiving that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I know we talk about mentorship and the NBAA has a program. Women in Corporate Aviation has it. I think Women in Aviation International has it. There's lots of programs out there. There's lots of people to help. You just have to ask.
You have to ask. And you know, the opportunities are going to be there. But you as an individual have to have that personal initiative and guts to take on the initiatives, because nothing comes easy. Nothing that's worth anything comes easy.
Nope.
But you have to demonstrate the personal initiative to make it happen. Mm-hmm. Nobody else is going to make it happen for you. You're going to have to, your mentor will point the way and will maybe open some doors for you, mm-hmm. but you've got to walk through those doors.
Yeah.
It's going to be you.
Yep. You do. I love this topic because I think it really easily transitions into the next part that I want to talk about. And that's specifically on the scheduler dispatcher. Of course, that's my niche. That's my favorite section of the flight department, if you can have one. And you are uniquely positioned, like I mentioned before, because you've seen so many different flight departments. I am a really big advocate of schedulers and dispatchers moving upwards, being part of the leadership and, management decisions. But there's a few things that sometimes hold us back. In fact, what would you think? What would be the biggest thing that schedulers and dispatchers maybe lack in order to move into that position at the table?
Yeah, I think a lot of schedulers and dispatchers don't really perceive how important they are. And they think they're a little cog on a big wheel.
Yeah.
And I think that's completely the wrong way to think about it. Mm-hmm. If you can visualize this, Lindsay, or maybe some of your listeners can visualize this. Think of a wagon wheel. Mm-hmm. Think of a big wagon wheel.
Yep.
Well, there's 5 spokes on that wagon wheel in any business aviation operation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the hub, the center of that wagon wheel, where everything comes together, mm-hmm. is scheduling and dispatch.
Yep.
That is the hub of the operation. Yeah. And that person who's leading that operation is part of the senior leadership of that organization for sure, every time.
Yeah.
And if that person isn't part of the leadership and doesn't have that strength, that organization, that aviation organization, will never be a strong one. Never.
Right. Yep. I totally agree.
That person it's the hub of the operation.
Mm-hmm. And we kind of talked offline a little bit about this too, but there's communication skills are really important to excel as the hub. a lot of us in this position have great technical communication skills, but what we might lack is the leadership communication skills. Or would you have a moment to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, the first thing is terms.
Mm-hmm.
People will often interchange the word management and leadership.
Okay. Yeah.
They couldn't be further apart. Things get managed like inventory. You manage inventory.
Yep. You might manage schedules, like so-and-so
right?
comes in at 8 and the other person comes in at noon. Yeah.
But people get led.
Yeah.
You don't manage people, you lead people. Think about it in the military. Have you ever heard somebody talk about managing people into battle? I haven't.
You're right. No.
You lead people. And so demonstrating those leadership skills is really key. Now, is leadership some mumbo jumbo? No. The one of the most important traits of a great leader is authenticity. Be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be predictable.
Yeah.
Be clear.
Clear. Yep.
Be clear.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the leadership skills the communication skills in leadership, it's not hard. It's not hard. You just can't don't intimidate yourself, because a lot of people do that. They get all worked up. They get all intimidated and then they stumble around.
Yep.
So if the CEO of the company is on the phone and she or he asks you as the scheduler a question,
mm-hmm.
what do they want? They want the answer.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to know how you got to the answer.
Yes.
They want the answer.
And not slowly.
No. Give it to them in 2 sentences.
Mm-hmm.
If their response is, thank you, you've done your job.
Yes. If
the response is, well, tell me a little bit more about it, then you have an opening to tell them a little bit more about it.
Sure.
But it's the same story. If somebody says, what time is it, Lindsay? And you say, now, wait a minute. I need to tell you about how this watch really works before I can tell you what time
right?
it is.
Yep.
Right? It's the same story.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? So the one of the secrets of communication at the most senior level is start with the answer.
Mm-hmm.
In every paragraph, the first sentence of every paragraph should tell you what's going to be in that paragraph. That's the answer for that paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Start with the answer. And once you have stated what the answer is,
mm-hmm.
do yourself a favor. Shut up.
Yeah.
Do not fill the silence void. If there's no response on the phone, or if it's quiet in the room, don't feel compelled to fill the void. Just be quiet.
Such a good point. And I have a funny story, because many years ago when I worked for Cox Enterprises, we had some issues with weather, and I had to call the principal at the time, Jim Kennedy, and had to call him and tell him that he was going to be delayed and he might as well go back home. It's going to be like an hour or 2 delay. And I got on the phone and I did exactly what you just said I shouldn't do. And I started explaining that we checked this weather here and we went this place. And he said, no, I don't want to hear all about that. Should I turn around in my car and go back home right now or not? And that was a huge lesson for me. It was, I just want to know what I need to do now. I should say, hey, the weather's bad. Please come back in 2 hours. Done. So yeah, that was a funny story. I will never forget that. It was probably 20 years ago and I'll never forget.
Well, there you go. There's a perfect example of communicating at the senior level.
Yeah. Yep. That's so interesting. Okay. So let's continue on kind of that same conversation. You're the scheduler, you're learning how to communicate. Are there any schools or classes that you would suggest them taking in order to get some of this knowledge?
Well, yeah, there's some things that I would suggest. First of all, if you're working in a corporation, know what the corporation does.
Mm-hmm.
Study the corporation, know the language of the corporation,
mm-hmm.
so that you can communicate clearly at the operational level as to what that company actually does.
Yep.
If it's a private individual, what are that private individual's key hot buttons? Know your customer, know the ones that you're working with. In most corporations, take the business skills. Go keep learning on the business side, because that's how the company is going to make the money to pay for the flight department. But for God's sake, don't be a talking head, but know what's going on in the company, be familiar with what's going on in the company, show an interest in what's going on in the company, and that'll help you communicate in a meaningful way.
Yep. Like if you're a publicly held company, read all of the publications, all of the reports at the end of the year. Now I've lost my train of thought of where.
Let me give you a shortcut to that.
Okay.
Public companies, Deb.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Every quarter, they issue a quarterly report that's filed with the SEC.
Yes. Okay.
Do not read it. Do not read it.
All right.
It'll mean nothing. But here's what I would do. Every quarter, the CEO or the CFO, the chief executive officer or the chief financial officer or the chief operating officer will get on the phone with a bunch of the stock analysts, and they will take their questions and they will give a report as to what the company did in the past quarter and what their these are the words, forward-looking guidance is for the rest of the year.
Okay.
Listen to the call. It takes 30 minutes. You don't have to read anything. You don't have to subscribe to anything. You don't have to pull anything down from the website. Just listen to the call. They're all recorded. Every one of them are recorded. And so on the investor relations part of the website, it will tell you how to listen to the call. Okay. And and generally it's in podcast format. So just what you're doing now, you can do, and it's so easy. It takes 30 minutes once a quarter. Who doesn't have 30 minutes to listen to what your company's all about? And then when you're on the phone with the senior EA, executive assistant, or one of the C-suite members, just drop a couple lines of what you heard and say, gosh, that was a great earnings call. I was so happy to hear that our earnings per share was forecasted 9 cents a share. You actually came in at 11. What a great job. Thanks for that. Yeah. And you know what the executive's going to do? Going to take the phone, look at the phone, and he's going to say, who the hell are you? I want to know more about you. So there you go. There's your invitation to communicate at the senior level.
And I think that loops back to where you were talking about dispatch, scheduling dispatch being the hub. If more of us were able to or took the initiative to request and feel like we should be at those meetings, it should be at those leadership, we could use some of this forward-looking guidance. We could give our own forward-looking guidance of how we see the dispatch scheduling department going over the next 6 months or a year. Or here's what we have done. I think you said it right about lead that dispatch scheduling department as if you are part of the leadership team.
You are. You have to be part of the leadership team. And go to your director of aviation or your VP of aviation and say, as a starter, I want to chair the ops call. If you do an ops call once a day or once a week, I want to chair that call. And then you're the hub of that call. So you say, okay, so here's what we got coming up for the next week. Here are these trips. Now, Martha, on the logistics, on the ground transportation, is everything all set? Well, we still lack this or that or the next thing. John, on the aircraft, I know you have it down for maintenance for the next 2 days. Does it look like we'll be having that aircraft up and ready for the trip, or do we have to back it up with a charter?
Yeah.
So if you are the hub, for God's sake, be the hub.
Yeah, and
go to your director and say, I want to chair these ops meetings. Then you are part of the leadership team.
That's so true. And I love that because these are actionable items. Like I can really see anybody who's listening right now being able to take this right back to their department and action it right away.
Yeah. So what are you doing when you do that, what are you doing for the aviation director? The smart aviation directors, they will realize that you are profiling them as a true leader because you're blossoming under their mentorship, under their leadership.
Sure.
So yeah, try it.
That's awesome. Great ideas. I kind of want to switch a little bit then now away from how do we be part of the leadership to maybe once you are part of the leadership, or maybe you've been in scheduling, dispatching for a while. And I want to talk about giving back. And this has been kind of something that has been on my mind for a while about being the mentor or giving back, volunteering and helping out. I know you do a lot of that. You're very active with NBAA and other organizations as well. How important do you think that is for anybody in aviation?
I think it's critical. And I'll give you an analogy, then I'll get into the aviation.
Mm-hmm.
So probably everybody listening to this podcast, I would say that everybody likes to eat. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that would be a fair assessment. Okay. Yep.
Well, how are you best going to learn how to cook? You learn by working with a chef. And the chef is the one who's going to teach you a lot of skills that you can't learn out of a book.
Right.
You can't learn just by reading a cookbook. So true. In aviation, the way that we transfer skills on the flight deck is we have a senior captain working with a less experienced pilot, and we talk about reading the weather. Reading the weather that's out in front of the flight deck, looking at the various cloud forms. Now, where do you suspect that we're going to have some turbulence? How does this temperature look as compared to ISA temperatures? How's the performance of the airplane going to be impacted? All that is one-on-one teaching. It's also the same in dispatch. Yeah. So how close are we going to cut it? How much leeway do we need to have in the schedule? What's that turn time look like at Teterboro? If we could turn the airplane at 25 minutes at every place else, what do you think we can do in Teterboro? Probably not 25 minutes.
Yeah, probably not. No.
So it's passing that knowledge along to the next generation, but they have got to be receptive. They've got to want to learn. Yep. You can't make somebody want it. They've got to want it themselves. And if somebody doesn't want it, don't waste your time. Yeah. Don't waste your time.
True. Boy, I have really just, as I go through my career, I feel almost like the word could be obligation for anybody who's been in this aviation industry for a long time. You're almost obligated to give back. Doesn't mean that you have to do it in a specific way. You could give back in all sorts of different ways, but I really think that's important. And I like to talk about that.
So one of the most important give backs that I've seen, especially in aviation, is here's how I failed.
Okay.
Here's a whole series of failures, and here was the root cause behind the failure. Learn from my mistake. Learn from my error. And don't be so vain that you can't talk about how you failed, because everybody fails. Every single person fails. And we're better for learning from the mistake. And so if you can help somebody else learn without having their nose broken, now if you can see my nose has been broken about 19 times, but if you can help them avoid that pain,
right?
That's great.
Yeah, it totally is. I want to talk about not only giving back once a year, which I would say would be the NBAA S&D conference, at least for our section of the industry. We see people coming in and they're speakers or even receiving help. Our industry, the S&D group, has one time a year to go and visit with everybody. And it's like three days and so much stuff is crammed in at one time. I would like to push back on the fact that it's only once a year. And I say push back because I think that that's not enough for us to do just by going to S&D once a year. And some of us don't get to go every year. So I think it includes going to your regional groups even though maybe you might think that there are a lot for pilots, but I think the regional groups you have to go to, I think you should listen to like an online podcast. This cannot be something that you do once a year. It has to be year long.
Can I give you a suggestion?
Yeah, definitely.
So use benchmarking.
Yeah.
By benchmarking, what I'm suggesting is that you identify 4 or 5 companies
Mm-hmm.
and you actually go visit them and sit with them and go through all of their processes with them to pick up great ideas. But here's the get back.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be willing to do that with them too.
Yeah.
It's got to flow both ways. Benchmarking is incredibly valuable because you're going to be in a real work environment and you're going to see techniques that never get talked about,
Mm-hmm.
that you can incorporate into your operation.
I love that.
And that can go on all year long. Maybe you can make a commitment with your aviation manager to do 1 a quarter,
Mm-hmm.
which means that he or she is going to put the money into the kitty for the travel, for you to go do the benchmarking, and for there to be some backup for you when you're out of the office and doing one of these benchmarking trips.
Yeah.
But then again, somebody would have to find an organization that provides backup schedulers. And I don't know who that would be.
I love that lead in there, Jim. Yes, definitely reach out to LDA. But I think that's a really good example of using your resources.
Exactly.
LDA is a resource out there to help you with those types of things. There's other companies out there as well. Of course, I think LDA does a pretty good job of it. But yeah, use your resources to grow and be a better leader in your scheduling dispatcher department. And you also talked about work-life balance in general. If you're going to be a good leader, you have to lead, what did you say? You have to maintain quality of your whole life. Yeah. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that's one of the occupational hazards that I see in scheduling is that a lot of schedulers, they don't have a life.
Yeah. Right.
They are permanently attached to their laptop.
Yep.
They don't go on vacation. They take the laptop to the restaurant at night when they're going with their significant other. I've even seen some schedulers take their laptop to the theater.
Right.
And they may have it closed, but they can feel it buzz. And then when it buzzes, they go out in the lobby. Bad. Yep. You've got to have work, and aviation, business aviation, private aviation is awful for work-life balance. You know, on the pilot side, we have one of the highest rates of divorce of any work category. It's awful. Yeah. And it's really bad. But on the scheduler side, it's a real hazard. It's a real occupational hazard. Uh-huh. And so you really have to focus on generating that work-life balance, which means, again, whoever's doing the budgeting has to budget for temporary help in scheduling and dispatch. Mm-hmm. So where else do we see temporary help? Well, how about our contract pilots?
Right. I agree. Right? Yep.
How about our contract maintenance folks?
Yep.
Right?
Flight attendants.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that work-life balance is so important. If you really want a career that is rewarding on a long-term basis for you, mm-hmm. because you never want to get to the end of the road and ask that fateful question, is that all there is?
Yeah.
It's a very sad question.
It is.
It's a very sad question. So that work-life balance is, I hope you can tell I'm passionate about that.
Well, I'm right there with you. And I do see sometimes people who are unwilling to give it up. And I shouldn't say give it up. It's not like you're giving away your job. Nobody's ever going to take your job over because you take an evening or all your evenings off like regular people. So I think not only do we have to educate maybe the leaders of the aviation departments that is a service that's available and should be used, we have to educate the schedulers and dispatchers that they have to let go. If they have the correct processes and training in place, they have to let go of that. Many of them are very resistant to sharing their processes. Because I go back to that idea that you had about benchmarking, and I love that. But I find sometimes we have some people that are unwilling to share. Like, oh my gosh, somebody might get in my space. And I wish that I could remind people that that is not a helpful, healthy attitude. Helps nobody, yourself or them.
So, that requires some real introspection.
Yeah.
And in some cases, we have recommended and action has been taken on getting some real professional help.
Oh, okay.
Because why do you feel at risk?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you feel that vulnerable?
Yeah.
Why isn't the self-confidence there?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that in today's day and age, we have really opened up the discussion on mental health.
Yeah.
Because we've needed it for a long time.
We have. And I dare say even a lot or heavily in aviation, because if I'm not mistaken, even to get your medical, or you could get your medical pulled a few years ago if you were under any sort of mental health care.
Sure.
And I think that's been part of the stigma, at least in the aviation industry. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Gosh, very interesting topics. Well, we could talk about this. I could talk about this all day long because I agree. This is a very passionate topic for me. But maybe let's switch over to, if you were talking to aviation personnel in general, do you have any words of wisdom, suggestions on any specific books that you might have read that would be really great, or podcasts even?
So I was looking for it today, and there is a book called The Victim Cycle.
Okay.
And it talks about how you can tell if you are above or beyond or below the victim cycle, and how to get out of this feeling put upon and really be in a positive mindset. But that is a great book for us, for those of us in business aviation, because sometimes we have these AAA execs that triple type A execs that really can take you down, and you gotta be resilient and get out of that. And then there are a lot of great. First of all, I'm assuming that your audience aspires to excellence or greatness, and I assume that, and I'm not kidding, that they do aspire to be that way. So Jim Collins is a great author. And I'm looking up because I've got a whole library here in front of me. And one of the books that jumps off seriously, I do, if I turn it around.
Yeah. It can see it up. All right.
It's Good to Great. Good to Great is one of the most inspiring books. And so start with that one. But anything by Jim Collins is really good. And there's another one that the NBAA used a few years ago. It's called Nuts, Nuts.
Okay.
And this is a book about Southwest Airlines and how Southwest was born and grew. And these are good short reads.
Yep.
This is not a 15-pound deal for your backpack, but those and the leadership books about how people want to be led and how they want to be inspired. Those will give you some good ideas as to how you can take those ideas and incorporate them into your own personality and your own modus operandi. I have a personal belief that everybody wants to do well.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there are many people that wake up in the morning and put their feet on the floor while sitting on the mattress, then put their head in their hands and say, "Dear Lord, please show me how to screw up today."
Right. Yeah.
I don't think there are a lot of those people.
No.
But you as the hub of that aviation unit, you're going to give them the inspiration to succeed. And you're going to help them put a smile on their face because they're going to go forward and they're going to be the face of the department with all the people that are in the back of the aircraft. Right. But you, as the person who is leading that scheduling and dispatch department, you have a big hand in setting the tone and the feeling for that entire organization, yes, just the way you are.
Yep. I so agree. Wow, Jim, you've had some really great comments, suggestions, inspiration, ideas today. What if somebody wanted to reach out to you and ask you some questions directly? How would they find you?
On the nearest moon. No, seriously. Our website is www.gray, Gray, Stone, Stone, advisors, it's plural, ADVISORS, or they can call me. And the phone actually, here it is.
Comes straight to you.
Right here on my desk. And our number here is 865-357-5077.
That's wonderful. Jim, thank you again so much for all your words of wisdom today and your time for speaking with us. You truly do have great insights, and I'm so happy we're able to learn from you today.
Lindsay, always a pleasure. And keep those cards and letters coming.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes and check out our website for up-and-coming podcasts. This has been a production of the Business Aviation Collective, sponsored by LD Aviation.